G'day. Just want to talk a little bit more about the effects and the subsequent effects of sometimes what depression does, or how it impacts me and how I try and sort of work through it. A lot of times when I have depression, if I can't get out of it straight away, there's a couple of steps that seem to go through quite frequently, and from that I really sort of start to. I've noticed those steps keep on repeating themselves, so I can sort of see this pattern appearing. And I think sometimes it's worth sort of understanding that you do have patterns that you need to recognize, so that you can actually then do something about them. If you don't recognize those patterns or don't understand those patterns, then you can continue to slide into these sort of ways. So from my point of view, my patterns are normally around, I sort of normally get depressed. I normally are taking the weight of the world on my shoulders and realizing that I can't do that. I then sort of sink into that depression even further and further each time. And then as that sort of evolves, there's normally then sometimes I get physical pain that comes along with that. And then I become very distant. And then there's normally sort of a switch where it sort of like then becomes to coin a phrase, a fuck you moment, where suddenly I don't give a shit about anything anymore, and everything is not. And this is where I can normally see that it's normally a destructive pattern that I've then involved in stuff. And so I then start doing really destructive things in terms of how I respond to things or stuff like that. To give an example, sometimes at work I can then do really curt and short and impolite emails to people because I'm like, I don't really care. I've gone past the point of caring. And so that process then sort of happens. It's sort of like depression, dark depression, weight of thing. Then in order to have some sort of clarity of mind and become back in terms of things, I nearly then have to sort of go nearly the total opposite of not caring about anything, not caring about the world, and really just nearly sort of doing stuff to let me to get out of it, to leave me alone, sort of thing. And this pattern repeats itself. And then sometimes once I've had that, and then I've had the clarity of thought as to that, I can see that this pattern is repeating itself. A lot of times what I have to do is step away, move away from this, and just be out of earshot of anything, and also make sure I don't respond or talk to people in that sort of phase. Otherwise I'm going to get myself into a hell of a lot of trouble. And this pattern repeats itself over and over again, and sort of like sometimes I can pull myself out at the beginning because I can have do something that removes myself from that situation. Sometimes when I get the world on my shoulders, sometimes in that place there's people that might support me, so I sort of feel like I don't have to do everything myself, so that can help. When I get into that destructive mode of self-destruction basically, and self-ridicule and self-loathing, sometimes it's about walking away and just making sure you give yourself some space so you don't hurt yourself or others, more importantly others around you, even more than you are normally. So recognizing those patterns can sometimes be good. Doesn't mean that you'll get out of them straight away, but at least if you can recognize your cycle and your behavior, that can then help that sort of thing. I know that right now I'm in the destructive pattern, and that's why it's I'm trying to sort of stay away from people and shield myself from everything, because it's not healthy for me at this point in time. So again, thanks a lot, and take care of yourself and look after yourself.